By now, most of you have read the book of Revelation, and it may seem mysterious and very difficult to understand. So let me point out that in the book of Revelation there are two chapters that are really the key chapters for the whole book. And most of the interpretations that were done by Christians are centered around those two chapters, chapter 12 and chapter 20. So when you read and reread Revelation, please read those chapters, chapter 12 and chapter 20. Chapter 12 is the chapter when you are introduced to the story of a woman. This woman is about to give birth to a child, and the child is in danger because the dragon is preparing to swallow the child. So the woman is given her wings so that she and her child will flee into the desert, and the dragon is chasing them, but they are able to escape, and the woman and her child will spend 1260 days in the desert. Now, this story, and especially these numbers, 1260, will serve as the seed, the foundation for many interpretations of the book of Revelation. Now, the second chapter, chapter 20, is also one of the key chapters because it basically gives you the apocalypse in a nutshell. All of the themes of Revelation are there. So therefore, let us read chapter 20 together and let us take a closer look at those themes. It is a very short chapter. It begins with an angel. I saw an angel coming down from heaven with the key to the abyss and a great chain in his hand. Who is this angel? This is the angel of the apocalypse. My favorite angel, by the way, my namesake, Michael the archangel. He seized the dragon, that ancient serpent, who is the devil or Satan, and chained him up for 1,000 years. He threw him into the abyss, shutting and sealing it over him, so that he might not seduce the nations again till the 1,000 years were ended. After that he must be let loose for a little while. So we are introduced to the dragon, who is also identified as a devil and a Satan. That's a very important topic. Evil characters in the book of Revelation. We'll talk more about this in our later discussions. And then chained him up for 1,000 years. We are also introduced to the topic of the millennium, the millennial kingdom, when Jesus, along with his saints, will be reigning for 1,000 years. The approaching millennium will become one of the recurrent interpretations in Christian theology. Then, here is what happens. I saw thrones, and on them sat those to whom judgment was committed. I saw the souls of those who, for the sake of God's word and their witness to Jesus, had been beheaded, those who had not worshipped the beast and its image, or received its mark on forehead or hand. They came to life again and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years, though the rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. So the saints are resurrected. This is the first resurrection. And this is the resurrection of the good people, of the righteous people, who will reign with Jesus for 1,000 years. Blessed and holy are those who share in this first resurrection. Over them the second death has no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him for the 1,000 years. When the 1,000 years are ended, Satan will be let loose from his prison, and he will come out to seduce the nations in the four quarters of the earth. He will muster them for war, the hosts of Gog and Magog, countless as the sands of the sea. Now, who is Gog and what is Magog? It is usually interpreted as the ruler of the country. Gog as the ruler, and Magog is the country. They marched over the breadth of the land and laid siege to the camp of God's people and the city that he loves. But fire came down on them from heaven and consumed them. Their seducer, the devil, was flung into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet had been flung to be tormented day and night forever. So here we have the ultimate battle, the so-called Armageddon. And the result of the battle, when the devil is put into the lake of fire and sulfur, which is another image for hell. And then, at the end of this great battle, we see the coming of the New Jerusalem. I saw a great white throne, and the one who sits upon it. Here we are introduced to the so-called white throne judgment that is also present in other chapters of the book of Revelation. From his presence, earth and heaven fled away, and there was no room for them anymore. I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and books were opened. So this is the judgment. This is the resurrection and the judgment. Then another book, the book of life, was opened. The dead were judged by what they had done, as recorded in these books. The sea gave up the dead that were in it, and death and Hades, Hades is the Greek word for hell, death and underworld. Death and Hades gave up the dead in their keeping. Everyone was judged on the record of his deeds. Then death and Hades were flung into the lake of fire. This lake of fire is the second death. Into it were flung any whose names were not to be found in the book of life. And this whole chapter ends with the so-called second death. So to sum up, what we have here is this. Archangel Michael fighting the dragon. The dragon, or the devil, or the Satan, who is symbolizing evil. We have the Millennium, 1,000 years of the reign of Christ and his saints. We have various resurrections. We have Armageddon, the last battle. We have the judgment, and we have the second death. So all of the major symbols and themes of the apocalypse are summed up in chapter 20. And that is why all Christian theologians, when they discuss Revelation, when they interpret Revelation, cannot escape from interpreting chapter 20. In fact, chapter 20 becomes the center of their interpretation of this whole apocalypse.